Folks, this is Book Talk with Corbin. I'm your host, and we have a fine guest with us, Dr. Steve Turley. He is an internationally recognized scholar and intellectual thinker. He's written over 20 books, and he, I scrambled to get him before you guys, before my listeners. Wanted him to talk about the whole Subway situation with Megan Rapinoe. She's a spokesperson for Subway, what they call woke athlete. And he says some things in this article he put on there that I really felt that we needed to deal with. And by the way, who am I? It's Corbin, Book Talk with Corbin, booktalkwithcorbin.com. But of course, not too long ago, this situation with Afghanistan came about. I looked at Dr. Turley's article on that, and I will say this. I sort of don't get the impression President Biden's going to be too happy with the doctor once he reads that article. He tore him up. But here's what I like about this, folks. Listen to this very carefully. He just didn't just spout out some stuff there. He's giving out a sound analysis here. And as far as I can see, this is nonpartisan. But let's start off with Subway. Doc, can we start off talking about Megan Rapinoe?
Yeah, sure, Corbin, absolutely. And again, thank you for having me back. Really enjoy your channel. Subway sandwiches, as you know, they've had, or as you may know, they've had Megan Rapinoe as the centerpiece for one of their latest ad campaigns. And they've had a number of people, Tom Brady's on there and so on. So it's not just her, but she has been one of the more prominent people to be featured in this Subway ad series. And the way Subway is structured, as I understand it, is that owners of the franchises actually own the store outright, and then they pay a percentage to the headquarters to support sort of a unified, coherent marketing campaign. Well, what we're finding out, particularly shop owners in very red states like your own in Kentucky, they're finding out very, very quickly that their customers do not like the fact that Megan Rapinoe has become the new face of Subway. In fact, I'll read this for your viewers. There was one owner who reported getting a letter taped to his door of his Subway shop, and it said, "Boycott Subway until Subway fires the anti-American Megan Rapinoe, the creep who kneels for our beloved national anthem." And so it's really, to me, the article, I wrote the article because I found it so fascinating, this gap in perception among, obviously these very wealthy CEOs at Subway and the rank and file folk, just your ordinary Americans who consume at Subway on a regular basis. They're loyal customers and small business owner shopkeepers. They don't have anything even remotely in common with this, multi-million-dollar soccer star who likes to use her platform as a basis for going all social justice warrior and cultural Marxism, like we last talked together, which you know so well. They don't want anything to do with her, and they don't understand why a shop that they enjoy so much and that they support would peg her as the new spokesperson for it. So it really highlighted this people versus political class dichotomy that's been growing over the last decade. That's indicative of this growing populism that's going on throughout the world. And then I looked at the economic elements of this populism, which I thought was very interesting as well.
And in this article here, Patriots boycott Subway over woke Megan Rapinoe ads. And in here, you bring up a concept. I've sort of seen it, I've heard it, but you're the first person I've come across who actually gave it a name in consumer politics. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, consumer politics. Yeah, it's something scholars have written about over the last, 20 years, 30 years or so. But
Uh-huh.
it's really gotten hot of late, especially with cancel culture, because cancel culture is a particular kind of, leftist, globalist sort of outworking of consumer politics. But basically what's happening, and it's been going on now for a while, it just happened to be really hot right now. Our
Mm.
economy is going through a kind of, well, I call it a reconfiguration, where economic choices are being made more and more in relation to the consumer's political sentiments. So
Mm.
we're finding that in an increasingly polarized politics that we've been experiencing now since it's been going on, really, if you think it through, since the Clinton years.
Mm.
In that very polarized context, people want to know if they're supporting businesses that support their values or are antithetical to their values. And what people are doing is they are intentionally more and more buying from companies that support their values, like Chick-fil-A, for example,
Mhm.
and they are refusing to purchase from companies that they believe are antithetical and very hostile to their values. So that creates two terms. The refusal to buy, we all know, is boycotts. We're all familiar with that. But it's interesting, the intentional buying from a place that we feel where its owners support our values, that's known as boycotts. And
Mm.
we saw that I used the example of the Goya food products, and they're a pro-Trump CEO on the one hand for the boycott, and then also Goodyear tires, when we found out you weren't allowed to wear any kind of MAGA-related apparel as part of their standards or their dress code but you could wear whatever you wanted when it came to LGBT stuff or BLM or any kind of left-wing sort of apparel. And which the moment Trump found that out, he said boycott Goodyear, and boy, did they get boycott. They got hit hard for a couple of weeks, and then they reversed their policy. When the leftists tried to do the same thing to Goya after the CEO expressed his support of Trump in the Rose Garden of the White House, Trump turned around and initiated a boycott, where he said, go out and buy Goya food products, absolutely, and support this wonderful CEO, which people did. And it was really quite beautiful, because then they filled up food pantries with, lots and lots of food products. So everybody got blessed as a result of that.
Right.
The Goya did, the people buying it didn't, and then people who are underprivileged, they were able to benefit as well. So this is a very politicized economy right now, and consumer politics is playing a huge part in that politicization.
I guess maybe I'm a little isolated. I knew more about companies who would push a good cause. That's what I always was aware of, and that's what I sort of got into. I'll never forget, I was once shopping with my daughter, and she said, Daddy, I want to buy these shoes. I said, well, okay, what's the big deal? Why are you so excited about these shoes? Oh, when you buy a pair, then a kid in Africa gets a pair of shoes.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
She was really into that. And I was sort of surprised at how she was really into that. Now, she didn't know too much about my background. I've actually done work in African nations, and I didn't want to go into detail and telling her, actually what that guy's doing, he's not helping local African entrepreneurs, because how can you compete with free?
Very good point.
But anyway, it was are companies still sort of into that? I thought they were I felt that that would be sort of safer for them than, hey, I'm going to put up Colin Kaepernick, some idiot who gives money to cop killers. Why aren't they sort of moving more into that, just embracing that? Hey, let's support a good cause,
right,
or whatever,
Right. Well, that's what I mean. I think at least in part, it shows a discrepancy in values. So I think there's a values that, the Brazilian philosopher Olavo de Carvalho has done some writing on this. Olavo has pointed out, particularly in the United States, but he sees something comparable in Brazil, where the people, so we're just talking, your ordinary American or your ordinary Brazilian, have a very different value system than globalist elites or cosmopolitan elites. It's really interesting when you looked at the last New York Democrat primary, and the name of the mayoral candidate escapes me, but he was a pro-police Democrat, and he barely won. They thought he won in a landslide, and then there was some kind of election shenanigans going on that required recounts. It was a little nervous, but he did win. He apparently ran away with it in all 4 boroughs of New York City, except for Manhattan. The richest borough went with the far, far left candidates.
Wow.
So this kind of bourgeois, aristocratic, almost Marie Antoinette-like aloofness from our values, the values that the people share, that we all share together, generally our Christian values, faith, family, and freedom. They're so alienated from it. So they see Colin Kaepernick as a new civil rights hero. They see same thing with Megan Rapinoe. She's part of the new generation of continuing MLK's legacy. They don't realize that that was a very biblically rooted movement versus a radically Marxist movement that have actually very little to do with each other, and yet in their aloof value system that's so amputated from that which marks the people, they put it forward, and they're shocked to see that anybody would have any issues with it. It would be akin to somebody having issues with the I Have a Dream speech. It's like, well, what issues could you possibly have with this? That's the way they're applying that very same disbelief is applied to someone like a Rapinoe or a Kaepernick, when in point of fact, there is much to critique in their perspectives.
Yes.
Yeah.
Folks, this is Book Talk with Corbin. I'm your host. Check out my other interviews at booktalkwithcorbin.com. We're speaking with Dr. Turley, author of over 20 books. Hey, you can buy his books at his website, turleytalks.com, turleytalks.com. And you also have something of a TV program too. Is that correct, Doc?
Yeah. Just on YouTube. If you just punch in Dr. Steve Turley, we got a big YouTube channel as well. 2 videos a day, 5 days a week.
Wow. You're one protective brother, man. I'm doing business doing what? And I don't have a family. You got a family.
I just find scripts to steal, and then I just put them as my own. That's all.
Brother, we only got a few minutes left. Oh my goodness, folks. I don't know, man. This guy, Dr. Turley, he just tore up President Biden on Afghanistan. I know you could talk a long time about that whole situation in Afghanistan. I think that one thing I picked up on in speaking to a lot of people is that I don't know how you feel about Dr. Turley, but I just felt the United States looked bad. I felt we were humiliated. Do you agree, disagree? Am I missing it? What?
No, Corbin, I think you just hit the target bullseye. And when all said and done, we looked bad, and the international order up until that point, where I think in many ways it ended on August 15th, when the Taliban entered into Kabul, it looked bad as well. I think you're absolutely right. Look, I mean, after President Trump signed the peace deal with the Taliban from their political office in Doha, in the capital city of Qatar, there were 47 attacks by the Taliban against Afghan forces over the next few weeks. Trump responded with massive airstrikes from Bagram Air Base, and the attacks stopped. Okay, that was Trump's plan. Leave enough air power in place as an effective backup for the ground troops to enforce the peace deal. Biden ordered the military, and again, this even CNN is talking about this. MSNBC is